Hello everyone, and a warm welcome to the show. This is this week's edition of Energy Frontiers. I am Omono Okonkwo. Let's summarize some of the biggest trending news in Africa's energy industry this week. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries and its allies have agreed to boost oil production by 648,000 barrels per day for July and August 2022. Ghana has signed a $69.88 million renewable energy agreement with the African Development Bank Group to enhance electricity access in Ghana over the next 4 years. Under the agreement, households, small and medium-sized enterprises, and public buildings will be electrified. The African Development Bank Group says the 135 billion rand Medupi coal power plant owned by Cresco Holdings in South Africa will not make profits due to delays, design defects, and an increasing opposition to coal-fired electricity generation. Two UK-based energy companies, Tullow Oil and Capricorn Energy, have agreed to merge into a new company. The combined group will have a market cap of about $1.5 billion USD and will be the largest oil firm on the African continent. The International Finance Corporation will provide a $30 million grant to waste management company Aberda to support waste to energy conversion in South Africa and Morocco. In the meantime, the IFC has also signed on as a partner for the development of the $4.5 billion Mpanda Nkuwa mega hydroelectric project in Mozambique. Next on Energy Frontiers is our quick chat. This week, we focus on decarbonization in the oil and gas sector. This is Energy Frontiers. Welcome back to the program. On Energy Quick Chat this week, Dominic Goncalves, Senior Associate in charge of Decarbonization Solutions at Cresco Group Africa, spoke about how the continent can decarbonize its oil and gas operations in line with international best practices. Enjoy our conversation. What does decarbonization mean in simple terms for oil and gas operations?
Sure. So I think that decarbonization, or the response to climate change from the business point of view, is one of the greatest challenges of humankind. Obviously, I think that's something that we're all quite aware of. But from the oil and gas point of view, it also poses a tremendous opportunity for investment in our natural resources, and to develop issues such, for example, as green hydrogen and different forms of energy within Africa. And also to develop renewable energy sources that in some cases can be cheaper than oil and gas resources, while still continuing to develop oil and gas resources, because it's been stated that oil and gas has a long tail and renewables are still intermittent. So the technology for renewable energy is not there yet developed for us to use 100% renewable energy. And as such, we need to be using a combination of fossil fuel resources and renewable resources as we continue with the energy transition. So for oil and gas companies, and specifically African-based oil and gas companies, this presents a great opportunity to invest in the sector, and one will continue to be a fast-growing sector.
So as Africa maintains its rights to explore for more oil and gas, how can project developers decarbonize their activities?
Well, so certainly in terms of their own fuel consumption and in terms of their own energy consumption, they can look to decarbonize their activities by incorporating lower cost renewable energy, such as solar and wind, which in many cases can be cheaper, for example, specifically in remote locations, than diesel or HFO. That being said, one still needs diesel or HFO or fossil fuel sources at the very least as a backup fuel. But what we've been seeing in the African market in terms of the business case for renewables is that the pricing has gotten a lot cheaper, and where it makes sense to use solar and wind, one can achieve energy savings for your business. So what we've seen in the African context, in certain cases, solar costs for power generation solar cost for power generation can be in the range of 2 to 5 US cents per kilowatt hour for solar. And then if one looks at incorporating solar plus batteries, which enables a partial dispatchability, one can achieve sort of around 10 to 15 cents per kilowatt hour. And diesel remains significantly more expensive in certain cases. So one can look to achieve both cost savings or energy savings while decarbonizing their system. And I think it's certainly becoming a bit of a myth that it's more expensive to decarbonize than to not, because in certain cases it's actually cheaper for a customer's business to look at incorporating a percentage of renewables in order to offset their generation. Secondly, I think that cutting emissions is not necessarily expensive. In some cases it is, and in some businesses or some types of operations it is indeed expensive. But I believe that oil and gas companies can look at their operations and look to identify low-hanging fruits whereby they can affordably look to decarbonize their operations. We've been dealing with certain clients in the mining sector and the oil and gas sector where they've been pleasantly surprised to look at certain cases where some solutions can result in a positive NPV of savings. So a positive net present value of savings for actually reducing emissions over the life cycle of incorporating new technologies or new solutions. So I believe that African businesses, and particularly African oil and gas players, should look at the aspect of decarbonization with an open mind, because this is a very fast-changing space and a very fast-evolving space. So certainly what was the case 5 years ago, where renewables were more expensive and less efficient, is not the case today. In many cases globally, renewables has become the cheapest form of power generation. And while we still need to, of course, continue to use fossil fuels for a long time to come. So I think that there's tremendous opportunity for African oil and gas developers to both continue to develop oil and gas resources while also continuing to increase their decarbonization efforts and incorporate technologies to do things better, more efficient and cleaner. And in some cases, that can also result in being cheaper. And this can also result in being able to incur cheaper forms of financing on the global markets. It's of course become easier to finance when one is decarbonizing. And I believe that as Africa, we have a lot of natural resources to continue to exploit. So oil and gas producers and explorers and developers can also look to exploit and develop Africa's natural resources with regards to solar and wind. In many cases, decarbonization, Africa is in many cases at the forefront of global decarbonization, because if we look towards the energy transition is causing a lot of growth in mining, because we need to develop the raw materials and the minerals needed to result in the energy transition. Many clean energy technologies such as solar, wind, batteries, green hydrogen, fuel cells, electric vehicles, etc. A lot of those need the raw materials, which are minerals, which are often produced in Africa. And so we are, in a sense, creating that hardware to enable the energy transition. And at the same time, we are not yet technically able to produce 100% of our energy needs from those renewable sources. So we still need to continue to produce oil and gas. So I don't believe that Africa needs to be left behind in any way for this. I rather think that Africa can help to create the future, and that it has the raw materials on both the fossil fuel side and the clean energy side to help to fast track the energy transition both in Africa and globally, and to help provide electricity, oil and gas, both domestically and also for export.
Welcome back to Energy Frontiers. Let's track some energy product prices for you. Early on Friday, the London Brent crude slipped 0.16% to trade at 117.42 USD per barrel, while the US WTI dropped 0.27% to trade at 116.52 USD per barrel, after OPEC Plus decisions on Thursday to raise monthly production allocation on the back of EU ban on Russia's oil. Natural gas was trading down 1.85% to trade at 8.32 USD per MMBTU, also in early Friday trade. This week, a gallon of gasoline in Mbambane, Eswatini in Southern Africa cost 73 million Guinea. In West Africa's Lomé, Togo, a gallon of gasoline cost 2,253 West African CFA francs. And that is the package for this edition of Your Energy Frontiers. And we thank you for watching. You can follow the show on Frontier Africa Reports website and across all our social media handles as shown on the screen. It is goodbye from me, Omono Okonkwo, and I will see you next time.